And joining us right now is New York City mayoral candidate Andrew Yang. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, it's great to be back, Lynda. Thanks for having me.
The big news that we got today was, of course, the announcement from Mayor de Blasio that schools will be reopening full-time in the fall, 5 days a week, no remote option. I wanted to know what your reaction was to that.
I'm a public school parent, Lynda, and I think our kids learn better in person. And the facts say the exact same thing. It's not just schoolwork, it's extracurriculars, athletics, socialization. I've got two little boys, and they need to play with other kids to develop in the right direction. I think this is a great move for our communities. Schools should be open 5 days a week. We needed a clear vision, clear leadership, and I'm glad that the mayor has come down in this direction.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's social emotional aspect that's been lost, and also so much learning loss for so many students this year. How do you propose that that gets made up for the kids who have missed out on that this entire year?
This pains me every day, Lynda, because I think about all of the kids who've gone without school this past year. And again, if you've had remote schooling, you probably haven't learned 100% of what you were meant to in a given year. The average efficacy rate of online learning is about 50%. So we should expect that our kids are going to show up and need more. I love Summer Rising, this hybrid summer school summer camp that's being made available to people this summer. Our kids are going to need more time, is what it boils down to. And one of the things I've championed as mayor, as the candidate, if I am the next mayor, is that we need 10,000 tutors to be waiting for our kids when they come back to school. They could tutor up to 100,000 kids to help speed them up and make up for lost time. That's exactly the kind of investment we should be making in our kids right now.
The school chancellor also announced today that they would be allowing parents to come in for open houses. They want parents to see what kind of COVID safety precautions they are taking. Should parents feel safe about doing this right now? Do you feel safe as a parent for the fall?
I do, Lynda. I've been vaccinated, and I'd certainly urge everyone listening to this or watching this to get vaccinated if you haven't. But the data says that if you've been vaccinated, coming into a school building, interacting with people is perfectly fine. And our city needs to head in this direction, not just in terms of schools, but restaurants, small businesses, bars, you name it. We have to have that confidence that we can interact with people again. But this goes double for our kids and our parents in schools, because if schools aren't open, not much else is going to work. And I talked to parents who've said to me, I want schools open so I can go back to work. All of the pieces fit together, but it starts with schools being open and people feeling safe, having their children and bringing themselves to meet with teachers.
And I want to talk about something you spoke a little bit about at your event this morning, which is the gun violence that we saw in the city over the weekend. Nearly 30 people were shot across the city this weekend. We know that gun violence has been going up throughout this year as an objective fact, and that crime is one of the top issues when people are looking toward their mayoral candidates. So what's your proposal to fight the gun violence that's in the city?
Public safety is the number one issue, Lynda. And the fact is, nothing is going to work if people aren't safe walking our own neighborhoods, taking the subway. So we need to attack this as a public health emergency and crisis. I've proposed a new anti-violence and community safety unit that would be focused on reducing gun violence, starting in the communities that have been the hardest hit. And we would use something called focused deterrence, which is when you have community leaders and people in the neighborhoods identify folks that they think are trouble. And then you sit down with them and say, look, if something happens in this community, we're going to come to you first. This has been shown to reduce levels of gun violence. I believe that having police officers in these communities working hand in hand with the folks who live there, who know the community best, is the way that we can get the guns out and the violence down.
And what about getting guns off the streets?
We have to try and attack the source, which is these guns are getting bought at gun shows in Florida and other parts of the country where it's easier to procure them and then brought into the 5 boroughs. So we have to get a hold of guns that have made their way here, trace them using the serial numbers to their source of origin, the original sale, and then have NYPD actually either head to these gun shows or collaborate with the folks in these jurisdictions. You'd probably send the NYPD intelligence directly to those gun shows and try and identify the pipeline, the source, because there are people who are making money off of the bloodshed in our streets. And if we can keep the guns from making it to our city, we'll all be much safer.
You know, I referenced your event today. You got the endorsement of State Senator John Liu. And this follows other endorsements that you've gotten, for example, from Congresswoman Grace Meng. So I wanted to ask how important, how crucial that support is for you that's coming so much from the Asian community. How crucial is it, to your primary run?
I am so proud to have been endorsed by John Liu. He's been a tremendous leader for all of New York City, but also there today was Assembly member Kenny Burgos from the Bronx. Co-chairs of my campaign include Richie Torres, congressman also from the Bronx. We're building a multiracial coalition. Martin Luther King III has endorsed me as another co-chair. We're bringing together all communities who think that we need a change here in New York. And Lynda, people can feel it. The trash is piling up. People don't feel safe. Our schools haven't been open. We deserve better. There are New Yorkers from every community who feel like our city government has not been working for them, and that's what we need to change.
You know, you've been at the top or close to the top of the polls ever since polling began in this mayoral race. But there are other candidates who are now rising in the rankings and in the polls. So I wanted to know, what's your message to voters who may be saying they want someone who has a little more experience in the city and a little more experience in dealing with city issues and government?
Well, what I'd say to them is that I've run a business here in New York City that grew to become very significant. And if you've interacted with a small business here in New York, you know there are no excuses. You have to deliver results. People don't care about politics. And that's what we want from our government right now. We want someone who's just going to deliver, who doesn't owe people favors going back 10, 12 years because they've been planning this run for decades. We just want our city to work better for us, whether that's cleaner streets, safer streets, businesses that are open, schools that are serving our kids. We can do better. And that's why there's so much excitement around this campaign, Lynda. This is a campaign for the people. It's supported by the people and not the special interests who've been running our government and our city, unfortunately, into the ground for far too long.
And as we get sort of into the home stretch of this primary, I wanted to ask, as you look back now with just a couple of weeks left, what can you say now about what this race for mayor has been like? What have you learned about New Yorkers, about being in this race? What do you see now that you didn't see?
It's been such a blast, Lynda. And I'd be the first to say that there are neighborhoods and communities that I did not know as much as I should have about prior to this run. I recommend that everyone run for mayor just so you can see our city and all of its
right. Really
all of
get
its
to
incredible
know.
diversity and glory. And Lynda, you probably know what I'm talking about because you've also probably been around all parts of New York. But everywhere I go, there is this sense, Lynda, that we need new leadership. We need change in the city, and that we can do better than we've been getting. And if you elect someone who's been rattling around our bureaucracies for years or decades and you expect things to change, we know that's not going to work. That's the message I've been getting from people in every neighborhood here in New York City. And that's why we're going to win this election on June 22nd.
Andrew Yang, candidate for New York City mayor, thank you so much for giving us some time again. We appreciate it.
Of course, Lynda. Early voting starts June 12th, so it's not just the 22nd. Thanks, Lynda. Great seeing you.
Thank you.